This is a pretty crazy one, though, because of the data and AI involved. Nelson put together this panel so that you all can benefit from learning, sitting down, and seeing what's next. In fact, it's already here and it's moving fast. So, Nelson, what do you have for us today, man?
Yeah, I mean, if we could just also just take a second to appreciate how handsome everyone here is. Usually, when you put a group together like this, you got a couple ugly guys, but I mean, this looks like I'm trying to think of a male fashion show, like a Tommy Hilfiger runway right now. So,
Pretty good. I
yeah, let's
mean,
start
Keegan,
things
look
off
at
there.
that. Keegan's dressed up for the occasion, bro.
I'm
Yeah,
digging the gray hair streaks in Tristan's hair. It makes me feel better about what's coming for me.
yeah,
It's
very
good.
Clooney-esque.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah, guys,
kid
thank
number
you
two
for
showing up for you soon. So that is coming.
Oh
It's
yeah, no,
coming
it's
real
already
fast
there,
for you,
bro.
yeah,
actually.
yeah. Yeah, at any point during this webinar, Keegan may have his second child. So if he has to go, we all understand. So yeah, guys, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. I was talking to Justin Benson, is the CEO of Shiloh, a couple of weeks ago, and he, he's got a really cool software that he's selling to teams. But more than that, like he's building a really cool data, right? Because he's got Shiloh AI, which is essentially like a coaching tool that teams can activate, and it gives. I'm probably not explaining this in the best way, but it basically goes through calls that teams are having, and it parses everything and it gives advice in terms of where they could potentially improve. And then also, but as Justin goes getting more and more call data, a lot of you guys clicked onto this, registered to this webinar. You saw that we were t heralding that we had 15 years of calls that Justin's software had essentially analyzed and pulled away some really cool pieces of information that we're going to share with you guys today. Um, so anyway, the point of sharing all that is that Jesus, my mind is going completely blank. But cooler than Justin's company is the actual data and the insights that he's able to pull out from it. And so that's going to be the focus of today. Justin's going to kind of lead the charge there. Keegan's got a top producing team. They're using Shiloh. They're leveraging a lot of these insights in the conversations they're having. He's going to chime in with that kind of stuff. And then Tristan and I will provide some color commentary, wherever we can. So maybe does everyone want to just introduce themselves real quick?
Yeah, I was going to say, Keegan, be helpful for everybody to get a background on you, for
Yeah,
sure, thousand
yeah,
percent.
absolutely. My name is Keegan Siegfried. I own Paramount Home Group. HQ is in Tampa, Florida, which it's sunny behind me. It's actually nice and cold today, which is rare but awesome. But we have
Wait, what's cold? What's you got a context? What cold
I
is in
woke up
Florida?
and it was in the
It's like
40s.
60 degrees.
No, it was in
Okay,
the 40s
40s.
this
All right,
morning.
all
Maybe it
right,
is 60.
all
I
right.
haven't been outside today. But yeah, we've really grown over the last couple of years with intention on scaling. And, so like I said, HQ's in Tampa. We have expansion markets in Orlando, Stewart, West Palm area, Miami, and most recently, as of last year, Chicago. So we've been really scaling and growing. And obviously, I'm on this call because I've been using Shiloh at a pretty decent level. I wouldn't say the highest of levels yet, but even just scratching the surface with it, we've seen massive improvement.
That's awesome. And yeah, don't complain about cold if you got a team in Chicago, man. They're gonna like they're gonna come kill you for that.
Yeah.
And also the time frame of which Keegan has built this organization is like pretty impressive as well. Like, you want to share about that?
Yeah, I was the small, lean and mean team, with up to 15 agents for the first 4 or 5 years since 2017, and I made a switch in brokerages probably 3 years ago, almost to the day. And once we made the switch over to LPT, it really focused my brain on scaling and what that really was like and what the things I needed to put in place in order to do it effectively. And so, yeah, we went from 15 to now we're over 150 in 3 years, which was pretty cool. I remember 3 years ago, we were celebrating 180 closings or 178 closings. And we just finally got the books audited. We ended it with 1,127 closings for 2025.
That's
So,
crazy. Yeah, the 1,000%. I'm probably going to get that conversion wrong, but yeah, basically, 10x your growth, like
yeah,
output in a
yep,
3 years time, which is nuts. That's so crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What do you you've mentioned like you're using Shiloh. We're going to pour through some of that data here in just a bit and like kind of walk through some of the stuff that's interesting about your organization. I'll do quick intro really quick. I'm Justin, CEO, co-founder of Shiloh. We're AI conversational intelligence tools. So we help come along real estate teams and ensure that the most important thing that is happening, which is the conversations that we're having, actually turn into something that's fruitful, right? Because if somebody's putting in the effort, 100 calls, but not getting the outcome that they want, the issue is not in the effort, the issue is in the performance of the activity, right? But as we grow as an organization, that conversation becomes much more invisible. You can't hire enough sales managers to listen to all of the calls and give accurate feedback and scale all of that. Keegan's smiling because he knows, like you do your best, and it's just the reality of it. So Shiloh comes alongside and makes all of that plain as day. So that way, that lever in your organization, the conversations that are happening actually feel like a controllable lever at this point, right? So that is Shiloh. And to preface some of this information that we got going here is that we have, about 4 months ago, we kind of pulled the first case study after Shiloh had a year's worth of data in it. And we had 15 years of continuous talk time at that time. Now it is 19 years of continuous talk time just 4 months later, which is crazy seeing the data set continue to grow. But it's been really fun giving this data back to, real estate agents and teams kind of at large, Shiloh users, not Shiloh users, because there's some stuff that you can implement whether or not you're using Shiloh or whatever, right? My whole MO is just like leave people better than we found them. And if we do a good job at that, then I don't know, maybe they'll use Shiloh one day or something, right? So the framework that we're going to talk about here is like the 3 best practices that happen on every phone call to have the highest leverage point for increasing your conversion rate, right? If the simple math on this is that if somebody's making 100 calls and they have a 2% conversion rate, great, they're setting 2 appointments per call. You tell them, okay, you want to get to 4 appointments? You got to make 200 calls now. Okay, that double output has a time issue to it. You can't just keep doing that indefinitely, right? Maybe it would be better to increase that conversion rate to 4%. And now they're setting 4 appointments. And then when they double output, now it's 8, right? There's this exponential scale to the reality of that. This data is proving that lever exists inside a real estate organization. So the kind of synopsis of this is that over all of those calls, 83% of them ended without any clear next step, which is alarming. I mean, we all know, if you're a team leader, sales manager listening, you know that that's happening. But when you backwards compute that into like GCI data, we start getting into the 600 to 800 million of GCI missing from pipelines range. We're used to hearing those numbers in volume. That is a GCI number that you just stated, right? So that is down here, at the bottom. That's really interesting. Setting next steps and not undefined next steps, not we'll see you next week or we'll talk to you sometime in the future. It is, hey, what does next Friday look like, right? So we're going to go through some of that stuff. A good example of that would be, I don't know, if I set up a time I was just talking to Nelson, for example, and I said, all right, Nelson, good talking to you. I'll send you all these listings. I'll follow up next week and we'll find a good time to look at homes. Shiloh doesn't like that. That's an undefined next step. What this data point is wanting us to do is set a defined next step, which is, hey, Nelson, I'll send you all these listings in 15 minutes and let's just get a time on the calendar now to go see your top tier 3 homes. That's really our best next step here, right? Like calendared time and date. And now, okay, I want to preface this for all of the people that are going to say like, oh, it's not possible on every call. Of course, it'd be overly idealistic to think that you could do that on every single call, but it should be our intent because we know that when we set a clear next step, when we ask 2 questions that get a objection to show up and we stay on the phone for at least 3 minutes, those 3 activities combined increase conversion rate by 6x. And that is across all Shiloh accounts in Canada, all of North America, that standardizes the averages around that, right? So we know that those 3 levers are levers that anybody can hit on. You don't have to use Shiloh. Just start coaching your teams for the love of God to set a clear, defined next step, or at least aim for it and have that attention every single time. The second thing, that whole asking discovery questions thing to get an objection to show up, we have to break people loose of this idea that an objection is a negative thing, right? So I don't know, Keegan, you give me an example. You've made a lot of calls in your life. So how many times does an objection show up as the angry, pissed off thing that we all visualize in our brain when we say objection?
Yeah, I would say 10% or less. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if anything, somebody's gonna, try to cut you short versus, be pissed off at you or cut you off, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's right in saying that it is kind of a projection in our head, and we create it
Mhm.
more than it actually is, for sure.
Yeah, every time I just spoke at Unlock, right? And I had everybody, hey, raise your hand and give me examples from the crowd for what you think of. What's the emotion when you say, if you, I mean, you guys can put in the chat if you want to, but like what is your emotion when you think of objection? And everybody's like, bad, angry, I'm scared, like I'm going to lose a deal, whatever that is. But that's not true. What a objection normally is I ask a discovery question like, hey, Tristan, you looking to make a move in the next 3 to 6 months? And they go, man, I really want to, but interest rates just like, I can't figure out how to make it pencil. That's an objection. Okay, what is our job as subject matter expert? It's, well, I actually just got somebody sold in a new build community and I got them down to like a 4.5% rate because the builder was able to help, kick in and buy that rate down. So if you're open to those areas in new build communities, we could actually, find a way to make that happen. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I would love to explore that. Okay, we solved their problem. The objection is no more than their problem, right? So make sure that we ask discovery questions. And this is going to actually show up in Keegan's data here in a little bit. And that whole stay on the phone for 3 minutes thing is a byproduct of doing those first two really well, right? Don't just like keep people on the phone, like by asking discovery questions and having true conversation with somebody. And yeah, solutions oriented, right? Andrew, that's a really good way to put it. Like if we do those things well, a 3-minute conversation is done like that, very, very fast. A 3-minute conversation goes by, right? So those are the main overarching data points.
Yeah, Justin, one of the things I want to make sure that like we all understand on this call is, you're talking about setting an appointment but more importantly, having a next step, because we know that, in real estate, we're building a long-term pipeline. It's not just where's my next contract coming from tomorrow, right? And so like having those next steps, one of the things that we measure is, the pipeline health, right? What does it look like 90 days out? What does it look like 6 months out? What does it look like 2 years out, right? And how many people are you adding to that database? And when you think about it like that, what we're really looking for is those next steps you're talking about. It doesn't necessarily have to be an appointment set, but maybe it's a value add that's going to be there once a month for the next 8 months as they continue to rent. Maybe it is throwing in that new home build story where they can go under contract now and they don't have to cancel their lease early. Like I just think that there needs to be a little bit greater dive than what it actually is. And, one of the data points that you gave me that we talked about recently was the 9 questions plus, right? And I actually brought that up in my team meeting today, right? About an hour ago. I talked about that, like how important those questions are because of the conversion rate and how healthy the funnel looks when you start to ask more questions. So, going to some of those data points, they are insightful. And you could see the eyebrows raised and like, oh my gosh, really?
Here's one of the things that we've been doing over the last year. Now that AI is just getting better and better. We've created a folder for as many different scenarios as we can find from conversations, Justin. So maybe you guys can plug this in and help us longer term. But find the different types of conversations: first-time home buyer, first-time seller, downsizing, boomer, whatever. And then you start creating these documents, these PDFs, 3-page PDF, five-page presentation through AI connected to Canva, however you want it. And then you have all of these things for your agents so that anytime a conversation comes through, they know what to give because it's a value add. It's no longer, shit, I didn't close this person, right? It's, what did I offer them that's value driven? That's what we've been doing over the last year and building this arsenal out. But with your technology, Justin, you can help us identify, how many opportunities do we have here to build out all of these different types of value presentations?
What's funny about that is, we can do one more than that is Shiloh's role play engine replicates the phone conversations that you have as an organization. So if you got a 3-star call and your objective was to leave this thing of value, because you're right. What I love about what you just said is an objection that I get is like, well, what I'm going to tell them, like, you want to calendar a time for 3 months on a Tuesday at 4 o'clock kind of thing? Like that feels weird. I'm like, yeah, that is weird. if you're not giving them something of value, that's super
Yep.
weird. As like a, but if you are showing up with something that is valuable to that human being, guess what? They might just take the time to do it, actually. But that
Yeah.
requires you to listen, ask discovery questions, figure out what they need as a human being, and then find a way to offer value in that way, So I love your way of like templatizing that. That's really awesome.
It's you bring up that role play, Justin. It was, I think, last week actually. We had our team meeting here in Tampa. Packed house, 90 agents on this one, and we did a role play. And we had some agents that came back, and they're like, what was my score? You got to wait a couple minutes, and then the score comes up, and they went back and redid it again. You had a couple more agents come out, and they're like, oh man, that lady was rude. And so it really does do a good job of helping those agents get prepped for how to overcome those, not just objections, but the tonality and the way that person on the other end is presenting themselves too. It was a pretty powerful, probably 15 minutes that we took for it.
What's pretty fun about this? I'm going to skip ahead really quick, and then we're going to dive into Keegan's data. But like, since we're talking about it, you guys can see my screen, right? So I just pulled up Levi Rogers' account out in San Antonio. So role plays are real interesting because, yeah, we can grab any arbitrary call in here. Like, I don't know, sure, this one. We can look at it and see all the call coaching data. Actually, let's grab one that Francisco did. That'll be a better one. Nope, that's a voicemail. I don't have, this is what I get for doing this improv, right? I'm gonna like hunt down a call.
While you're looking, Justin, I just wanted to point out really quick. I don't know that people appreciate it enough, but I did the very moment I saw this whole thing. Well, I don't even know how long ago you showed this to me, but how beautiful it looks to the eye. Like, this is so simple to follow and it's pleasing, and I like seeing it. I like logging in, and it, to me, aesthetics matter a lot, and I think you executed really well. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I care a whole lot about design and things being pretty and working well. So those are some core product disciplines to us, which me and Nelson actually hold near and dear over at Agent Fire. Like, you guys build like the prettiest websites that exist on the planet. So this role play engine is real interesting, right? So like, Francisco got a 3-star call. We have all of our call coaching. We're giving very specific kind of replacement phrases on like how he could have improved on this call, deeper motivation, discovery, all of it. It's all bespoke to the call. But then I can click role play and I can go, okay, it's Frank VA buyer. I can start this role play. And what Shiloh just did was it ingested the tonality, like what Keegan was saying, is like, oh, that role play was kind of rude. Yeah, because the original call was kind of rude, actually. And what's beautiful about this is that it was a happy accident. We didn't plan for this, but like after you get done role playing a call, what will happen is that Shiloh will grade this call and show you, did you increase, did you decrease, and show you the delta. But because Shiloh is replicating the phone calls that your organization is making, it feels like you're speaking to somebody in your market center, because the way that people speak in Tampa is different than San Antonio, it's different than Maine, and it's different than Beverly Hills, California, right? So instead of speaking to a generic AI bot, you are speaking to people that feel like the actual people in your market center. And to take this one step further, I had this disdain the entire time for situational based role play bots. I am role playing with a scenario that is a sign call or a Zillow connection call or whatever. Because if I role play with that one version of that call, I feel, especially if you're a new agent, you feel like you nailed it. You're ready to conquer the world, and you get on the phone with a different personality type, like a high D, and now you're like, don't know what to do. You're like spitting on yourself and umming your way through the conversation because you are just lost at this point, right? So because Shiloh is replicating these, we can create these role play libraries. So in Levi's org, if anybody wants to get access to a Zillow buyer connection call, they have to first come through here to this curated list that they built of 9 Zillow connection calls. And they have to simply turn 5 of these into 5-star calls, right? And because these are different types of humans, different temperaments, everything, it feels like what real life is, where you don't know what you will get next on the phone, right? And we can track it all the way through, and we can see, okay, who's mastered all scenarios thus far? Like it looks like Kenya and Anna of this onboarding class are the ones that have completed it. How many role plays? But this Paul guy looks like he might be a killer. He's only he's only like tried role plays 7 times, but he's already got 4 of these things,
I love
mastered
that.
at this point, right? So what's
Mm.
fun is that you can click into each individual one, see once they've mastered how many attempts. We can dive as deep as we want to go to this. So just in the idea of those like libraries that you were talking about of banking conversations, Tristan, that's like exactly what we're doing internally inside of here. So um, it's probably a good segue. Anybody else got anything to add before we kind of dive into some of Keegan's very specific data in his org?
No, man.
I had
Show
a
us the magic.
I actually had a comment and then some questions. So I'm curious, like what you guys think, Keegan, Justin, Tristan, even just everyone here in this webinar. And this could just be my own personal algorithms and the sort of emails that I get, but I've noticed for many years everything was just sort of focused on like inbound lead generation and leads. And I feel like these last couple of years, there's just been a much greater focus on, I think database nurture was a big thing
Mm-hmm.
in 2025, bigger than any other year. Justin's company now is introducing an entirely new opportunity, and obviously, if you were to try to do role plays with, let's say, a Chat GPT, the cool thing about Justin's company, I think, what really separates it is that he's got all this data, right? He's got it's no longer 15 years, it's 19 years of specifically real estate agent call data. And then he's got all the different nuances for individual markets and what have you. And so I'm just curious, do you guys feel like I see, especially with the emergence of AI, it just seems like the through line, like the main takeaway thing that I'm seeing with a lot of the top agents, guys like Keegan, is that they're focusing a lot more on leverage. And so it's no longer all about just inbound lead generation. It's really about just how do you maximize each opportunity. And that used to be a lot more difficult in previous years, but it seems like these last couple of years, especially like in this moment right now, the thing that I'm noticing with all the top agents and teams, which I'm also seeing are just like separating from everyone else at a level and scale that's just never
Yeah,
been
like
possible
alarming
before.
rates. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key word is just leverage and figuring out like how do we use how do I nurture my database? How do I teach my or get my agents coached at scale? Like how do I maximize ultimately every lead opportunity? And I think that's kind of if I were to kind of take away one top level item from this webinar from just everything I'm seeing, like especially now in this moment, it seems like that's it. Would you guys agree or?
Yeah, I'm going to totally agree about the leverage piece. Like, obviously, I'm running a much different operation than what I was 10 years ago as an agent, right? My responsibility is the agents. But, one of the interesting points about leverage is, we continue to create these different departments, whether they're client facing or agent facing. And I'll give you a perfect example. Our listing management team, one of our best call ratings that we have in our entire organization is our actual listing manager who speaks directly with the sellers. Right. So now it's not just grading agents. Now the agents actually have transparency into how well our staff is communicating with their clients. Like those are the kind of things that can help you take it to the next level.
That's I'm writing that one down. I always
You're
find
welcome.
out these new ways that people are using Shiloh. So thank you for that one.
Nuggets,
It's fun to be like,
nuggets.
yeah, that's
And then
amazing.
the
Yeah,
other,
I mean, the reality of that, Nelson, is that when you talk to successful teams like Keegan, there is a delta in between here. I want to be real because there's a lot of different people that are on this webinar, right? So when you get into the reason why people join teams like Keegan's is that at that scale, there is no lead problem. It's hard to sell Keegan another thing that generates another lead because it's like, oh, I have enough leads actually. Like I need more agents that are capable and well trained to convert these leads. Actually, I'm accumulating a nurture pond that just keeps getting bigger and bigger because we don't have enough agents that are good at this to do that. And this is not just Keegan's team. This is any large scale team. This is their issue. There is not a leads issue. I will say though, there is a delta. There's a size of team where generating leads is hard. Like that's true. That is very, very hard. So I don't want to discredit that for other people that are listening. That like there are teams that are in spots where generating leads are real hard. So
yeah. And then maybe another just quick observation I have too is that a lot of this stuff. So you mentioned that the three things are finish every call with next steps. Which actually a quick question there. You said you thought maybe that's a little bit too idealistic. Is it too idealistic to have every single team member or every time if I'm an agent I'm getting on the phone with someone that I'm always finishing with a next step? It seems like that would actually be possible.
Oh, I get the crazy extreme edge cases is the reason why I mentioned this. Like I'll have people say like, well, what if someone's in the hospital
Oh
about
yeah,
to
yeah.
go into surgery or something? Like, okay, yeah, like don't just say, praying for your surgery, hope everything goes great.
That's why we
We'll
think in
touch base. We'll
percentages.
touch base in the future
Yeah.
somewhere,
No, assuming it's like a normal conversation where they don't hang up on you or, have someone dying in a hospital.
Yeah, I would say most of the time it is appropriate to do that. It is more the exception that it is not appropriate to do that. Actually, people just feel like they're being pushy, and that's not true. Like I'd want to set clear next steps with my own, mom if she was buying a house. Like, all right, mom, we're going to go see houses this time, this date. Not like I'm going to sit around waiting for you and I'll just check in the future if you don't reach out to me. Like
But I
that's
mean,
the I want
theoretically,
to drive the relationship at that point. Like I'm the
yeah.
person that knows how to do this. The doctor doesn't walk into the room and be like, "Well, Nelson, how would you like this to go today?" No, the doctor has a plan. So
Well, you could have like a theoretically, you could have like a catch-all next step, which is just, hey, I'll follow up in X number of months or something like that. No, like it's just kind of
Shiloh
like
hates
a
that because that's qualified as an undefined next step for Shiloh. This data that
okay,
I'm talking
okay,
about is setting a defined time, at least date bound time next step at a bare minimum.
okay.
Yeah.
And then a quick question I had
So
there too. You guys mentioned the importance of leveraging value items in some of these next steps. Could you give examples of just some of maybe the top ways you present value in a next step or just in general, like in a conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Tristan just
definitely
gave a
not
really
just,
good one, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not just checking in or just following up to see
Yeah.
where you're at, right? I think we're in a situation. I mean, everybody on this call, for the most part, is a real estate agent or has a license and is trying to make a living, a good living, by selling homes to people. And so you want to talk about that, right? Even if your next step is keeping somebody updated on the market, right? I think that's a big thing too. Like not everybody's ready to buy tomorrow, like I was saying. Sometimes it's following up the next day to make sure that they got the email that you said you were going to get. And maybe it's not homes, but maybe it's just an auto drip of market updates, right? Whatever it might be. I think it pains me when I hear, hey, I'm just following up or I'm just checking in. Like there has to be a value add on top of that.
What's funny is that we got a bunch of orgs tracking that phrase because you can enter custom keywords and track
Yeah.
them in the back of Shiloh. We got a bunch of orgs tracking the phrase just checking in or just following up, or so they can see like who is saying that the most and literally showing them like your conversion rate is going down the tank. And by conversion rate, their answer rate on the backside, actually. So I'm going to show in Keegan's data here in a second, the impact of actually downline conversations from setting a clear next step on the first conversation that somebody has. Because it's not just that one, it is the effect of what happens downline, right? I'm a data nerd by trade, so I am going to cohort this stuff all the way down to follow it all the way through the chain, right? So that's a true reality. And as far as like value add is concerned, I mean, I heard it said once, I can't remember who, but like that sales is saying the right thing at the right time to the right person. But I've kind of disagreed. We don't know what right time is for another human, right? We don't know. I mean, maybe we have inklings, maybe they tell us, but most of the time we don't know, right? So in my opinion, it's like saying the right thing to the right person, the right amount of times to hopefully cover that span of when right time shows up that is an unknown variable for us. So when we set clear next steps, we keep the conversation going through that time horizon when the timing might actually line up for us, right? We're increasing our odds that what their right time is that they're probably not telling us because as a salesperson and they don't want to disclose too much information will fall within that time frame that they
I'm
are
going to give a
communicating
perfect
with us.
example on this. The thing that comes to my mind when you talk about this, Justin and Nelson, with the value add, think about if you were to call your entire database, how many people have already bought with somebody else, right? And then people just stop right there. Well, I want the agents to ask, how was that process? Did they love their agent? Are they continuing to get follow-ups or email drips on how much their home is worth since it directly affects their net worth, right? Like, and most of the time you're going to hear no. So maybe you didn't get that sale when they purchased, but I sure as hell hope that you get that listing when it's time to sell. You know what I mean? Like there
Right.
always has to be a
That's
next
great.
step, even if it might be 2 or 4 years out.
that panic report that everybody uses, that piece of Fellow that shows you all of the people that
Missed
listed.
opportunities.
It's like, oh my gosh, I bled 10 million in GCI last year because of that.
It's interesting how much
Yes.
overlap there is with everything you're sharing, and even with websites. Anytime you send people to a page on the site, there should always be a clear next step. The website itself, if you're working with if you're sending a first time lead to a page that you're trying to leverage to give yourself authority and social proof, you want to have steps of like what it looks like to work with you. And then so I also had like one question. I know that this webinar is focused on the 3 things you should be doing in calls, but I had one question I was going to ask you since we planned this webinar, which is, what's the one thing you should not do on a call? And the reason I ask that is because I don't have any experience with making calls as a real estate agent, but I get emails every single day. I get like now, especially with AI, I get just like hundreds of emails, and they're all like, from my perspective, cold email is kind of dead, just because everyone's just doing the same thing. And so, like, what are the kind of same things that agents are doing that are maybe killing conversations?
The just checking in. I mean,
Yeah.
stop with the just checking ins is my first thought. I would also say strong introduction with nothing additional, right? Hey, my name's Keegan. Is this so and so? Like, state your name and then state your business, right? That's like I think that helps people stay on the phone. Like, because if you get a call from somebody that you don't recognize, you're in your head, you're thinking, okay, what do you want, right? That's a big thing that I see agents miss. Like,
In Texas, you have to do it now.
Yeah. That's another. I actually wrote down the point. You and I, we've known each other for a couple of years now. It took me a little bit to actually jump into Shiloh because of the state law. And what's funny, Justin, is I'm happy to share it, that our conversation rate has actually increased, not decreased. So in Florida, I was fearful, right? And it took me a couple months to finally jump out of it. I was fearful that we would have call drops because, this call is being monitored, recorded. That alert you have to have, right? 2-way. And what happened is now it sounds like we're an actual place of business when the call starts. So our conversation rate has actually jumped up, not down.
You know what's funny about that is like I have multiple, I was telling you about, DJ and Lindsay who are on the other side of the state, experience the same thing, Whistle on the other side of the state, or the other side of the country. And I'm still trying to nail down like what the real data is behind that. But so far, the like anecdotal, like, let's get together and brainstorm why our answer rates are like increasing actually with a call recording disclosure is a lot of these longer term leads are being warmed up via text message and emails first, right? To like get somebody to actually raise their hand. At that point, maybe you reach out on the phone, but like when you call a reputable company, like, I don't know, you call Delta Airlines or whatever, guess what they have when you connect? Hey, this call is being recorded for training purposes. It's like, oh, in a world of spam calls and spam text messages, it might be demonstrating to consumers that this is a legit company, actually. That is the closest, like, maybe that's why that's happening thing, but we keep seeing it everywhere that it happens, so. All right, let's dig into some Keegan data here, because there's some really good points. So 226,000 calls. We're gonna dig. Keegan's been using Shiloh for about 3.5 months, so it hasn't been that long actually, which has been fun to dig through some of this stuff. So here's just a really quick thing, and this is not a Keegan issue. This is a reality of real estate. So 226,000 dials yielded 21,000 real conversations. It's about, just shy of 10% of those dials actually picked up the phone and there was a conversation. Plus, there were, 7,000 voicemails that got left inside of that data set. So when we're looking at that, 12.7% of the conversations ended with an appointment set of this data here, right? So when only 9% of calls become conversations, like your growth happens in like that conversation. Somebody just picked up the phone. Oh my gosh, like this is only going to happen 1 out of 10 times. Like we really need to make it worth it, right? So that's kind of the landscape that we're looking at. And I will say that Keegan's pickup rates and conversion rates are a touch higher than our average organization, right? And that was even before Shiloh, right? And I'll show you, it's gotten better, which is pretty sweet to see. So a few different things here to walk through. So I talked about things like the conversation layer being hidden in an organization. We don't know what's happening in these conversations. We have no idea. If you aren't using something to utilize it, or if you're not utilizing something that makes it clear, then monitoring based on activity is not good enough, right? Like knowing, oh, you made this many calls and it yielded this many appointments set or whatever that thing is. You are always going to have agents that like, man, they're putting in the activity and we have no, like, why aren't they getting it? And then they're going to get frustrated and then they're going to get burned out and then they're going to quit. Like, we need to get momentum rolling really fast, right? So what's really fun about this is like, here's some fun data directly out of 3.5 months of calls in Keegan's account. So let's start with the appointment set rate. So we are monitoring between, did you ask for the appointment or did you not ask for the appointment? That is, as old as time. Ask for the appointment, like, hey, okay, so next steps here is good time, on Saturday for me to stop by your home and take a peek and get you a really awesome, estimate on what we feel like we could sell it for. Also, I'll bring a few cash offers from our investors so we can compare those together. Okay, sweet.
Justin, I'm going to stop you right here for a second. Asking for the appointment. One of the things that just popped in my head, we just did this and actually listened to a couple of calls agents were making to their past clients about setting an appointment to come over and drop off a holiday gift.
That's awesome.
Like, yeah. Think about that. Like, it goes down to that type of thing. It's not just cold calls.
Correct. That's a really good way to put it, because Shiloh's appointment set data is not based on what your CRM log is. We are extrapolating these outcomes directly from the conversation. So you're correct. If they have a conversation with a client and they set a time and date to come by their house and drop off a pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving, Shiloh will log that as an appointment because that is truly an appointment, right? So pretty sweet to see that if you actually ask for it, your guys' set rate is 42%. If you don't ask for it, 5.5%, which is still actually pretty good given the fact that that's the reality there. It means when that happens, so just so everybody listening, when they don't ask for the appointment, but the appointment still gets set, it's because the consumer on the other side is the one driving the conversation, right? They're the ones that are like, okay, well, I want to go see it at this point, right? Which okay, cool, happy surprise, you got lucky on that one, but you do want to be the master of the ship on these conversations, right? So this one thing alone, simply asking would increase 7.6% more likely to book inside of Keegan's organization. The next data point here is real interesting about questions asked. So Keegan was just talking about how he spoke to his team about this. There is a extremely direct correlation to how many appointments get set and what the outcome is versus what the appointment set or how many questions get asked, right? So what we're seeing here with this number is the probability of appointment set, the conversion rate, right? So if we start looking at 0 to 2 questions, okay, great, 9.5%. And those are normally people just wanting to go see 123 Main Street or whatever that looks like, right? But if we get to 9+ questions, our conversion rate is 20%. That is wild.
You know what's interesting there, man? It's like a funnel. When we're doing online leads, whether they're Meta leads or Google, wherever, the longer they go into the funnel, the higher the chances are they're going to want to talk to us and go to the next step. I love this.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And what's cool about this is the data is showing us that there is a direct linear correlation, right? This would be a crappy data set to show you guys if it was 0 to 2 was 9 and then 3 to 5 was 4 and, it was all over the place. The fact that the trend line continues to increase with the amount of questions asked is very, very helpful here. So great. We ask our agents to ask more questions, be more inquisitive on these conversations. That alone would 2x conversion rate. And again, this is aside from just asking for the appointment. You ask for the appointment, that's 7.6x. You ask more conversations, that's potentially 2x, right? So these actions are starting to compound on themselves. And hear me correctly, Shiloh allows you to gamify and track all of this stuff in real time. Trying to tell an organization to ask more questions and also ask for the appointment and also stay on the phone and also set defined next steps all at once, no bueno. They're individual micro activities that we focus on in individual chunks of time, whether it's weeks or months, right? So we tell people hey, you should run a competition. If your lowest hanging thing is asking for the appointment, great. We should run a competition for who can have the most amount of calls where the appointment was asked for. We don't even care if the appointment got set. All we are trying to drive is the behavior of asking for the appointment, actually, because we know if we drive that behavior, down funnel results will show up, right? So we gamify that behavior that gets the back thing to show up. And without, something like Shiloh or, whatever, how do you gamify, how many questions they ask, how, did they set a next step? Did they ask for the appointment? All of that good stuff. So the final kind of tips here, which is real interesting, is kind of like a few more pro tip advices here. So talk to listen balance. These top two here are side effects. These are not things that we focus on. You don't focus on trying to get to the right amount of talk time. You don't focus on trying to get to 2 to 10 minute calls. That's, I don't know, like, if anybody's a golfer out there, this is like fresh in my mind. If you're trying to like hit down on the ball, you actually don't focus on trying to hit down on the ball. It actually makes things worse. It's the wrong thing to focus on. If I'm getting on a phone call and my thought process is, I just need to stay on the phone for 3 minutes, that outcome will not end well for you. Actually, you stay on the phone for 3 minutes because you asked questions and you got objections to show up and you were offering value. That's what gets these things to show up. If you ask questions, your talk to listen ratio works. And what's funny is that kind of like it depends on the organization, but basically like 60-40 ratio, kind of flipping back and forth between talk to listen ratio, always yields this 15.6% appointment set time at that point. If the call is 2 to 10 minutes longer, 16 to 17% conversion rate versus 6.39 under 1 minute, right? And again, those are side effects. The really interesting thing here is that this setting a defined next step that we kept talking about here, because it's not appropriate to set the question at all times. So I've got this data that is following kind of downline from these conversations. So downline, first call did not set an appointment from Keegan's Shiloh database. So if the first call had a defined next step, and Shiloh is kind of logging these on every call, whether it's defined, whether it's undefined, all of this information, then the contact had an appointment set on a subsequent call that was 25% versus the 18% for people that don't have any kind of clear next step. Then let's follow this even further. Follow-up likelihood. The fact that somebody's actually going to pick up the phone in the future, actually. This is with the whole thing that Nelson was asking, like, what do you do? Like, what's the value that you're adding? It's like, if you don't do this, what happens next if you don't do this? The fact that they won't pick up the phone, they're going to pick up the phone. They're 53% more likely to pick up the phone than if you don't do it. They're 32% likely to pick up the phone at that point. So you're kind of hurting everything from next conversation to all the way to appointment set, right? And just to show that our star rating, which is kind of the core grading algorithm in Shiloh, it tracks to the outcomes, right? It is kind of the North Star, no pun intended, whatever. I don't know how to say it correctly, but like it is the aggregate of all of these micro activities that we're talking about, right? So if these 4 to 5 star conversations that are happening in Keegan's organization yield an appointment set rate of 43%, right? Because what Shiloh is doing very naturally is taking all of these things that we're talking about into consideration. And now we're seeing that compounding effect of, okay, 7.6x more likely, 2x more likely, 20% more likely to answer the phone next time. We're seeing Shiloh's call score system is bringing that aggregate together, which is why that appointment set rate is so high in 4 to 5 star conversations, right? So that's a lot of data. You guys bring some like not nerddom stuff in here because I can bore everybody to pieces on this.
One of the things that I want to make sure that people understand, like this is a lot of data. And for me, like from a coaching standpoint, right? Like I think number one, we have to understand it as leadership, but number two, how we deliver this is equally as important, right? And so going over this, like I'm probably not going to dump every piece of data into an agent pipeline review, right? I'm going to pick and choose certain points and I'm going to choose the ones that swing the doors the most, so to speak, right? That small hinges swing big doors, right? But I'm going to make sure that we pick and choose each time. And when you do it consistently, like for instance, we have weekly agent pipeline reviews. It's not just, are your smart list cleared out, this and that? Like we actually want to integrate Shiloh into that. And so in order to do so effectively, we're not going to run through all of this. We'll pick a data set, talk about it, and then the next time we'll see if it got changed, and then we'll pick another data set. Does that make sense? Like it sometimes this can feel overwhelming until you're in it all the time. But we definitely make sure that the data is in front of them on a regular basis.
And just to show you guys something, sorry, I'm dealing with like crappy hotel internet around here right now. I literally have like 3 up, 3 down. I'm surprised this webinar is even working. We have an easy button for this stuff, right? So from the org level, if you're a team leader or a sales manager that has access to all of the calls, you can click this little Shiloh Insights button, and Shiloh would read through the 4,400 calls that Levi has in this past 30 days or whatever time filter or whatever filter I want to apply here, and give me the top moments and top improvements over all of that. So all of this data that I'm showing you, Shiloh does that automatically for you, so you don't have to go figure this out through all of the data. And that also exists on the individual agent level. So that same thing, an individual agent will have access to, let's say, their call coaching page, right? Well, guess what exists on this one? The Shiloh Insights button, where Shiloh will expose all of that stuff for you, and achievements and all their role plays and calls that they've made and all of that good stuff, right? So when it feels like it's overwhelming, we always tell people, they're like, well, is there only 3 things to improve? And I'm like, yeah, there's definitely more than 3 things to improve, but you can't handle more than 3 things at once. And they're stacked ranked in the order of like occurrence, basically. That one that's showing up at the top is the thing that's happening the most for you, right? So funny thing about this is that like Levi's organization historically has struggled with setting defined next steps. So how are we doing this? Okay, great. We have a filter in here for outcome, next step defined. Cool. Go to the agents tab and then filter by total amount of conversations. And now I can run a competition to say like, all right, who did this the most this week, right? Like we can gamify these micro behaviors is the true reality of it. So Keegan, that's a good call out that like it can feel like too much data. And our job over here at Shiloh is like help simplify it for people, right?
And to give you guys a shout out, not that you're asking for it, but you guys spent a lot of time with us, on the onboarding side of things and making sure that we fully understand it. And I will probably tell you that I still don't fully understand it 100%, but I'm way further down the road than where I was at when we first signed on, right? Like this system is so vast. I know you're improving it every single day as well. But I feel armed to make the agents and the clients have a better experience because of the data.
Yeah. I just wrote that down. We just did evolution number 1 of redoing our onboarding process. So you went through like, at least you got to go through the revamped one. If you came into Shiloh, like in the early days a year ago, it was like, cool. It's like pretty great. Here you go. See you. Best of luck. We don't even know how people are going to use it, but now we know like where to implement it into an organization. And yeah, this is going to take time to adapt. It's been 3.5 months, right? It hasn't been that long. So
yeah. Speaking of onboarding, that's another place where we've used this extensively. Like inside of our LMS, we use Talent LMS, but inside of our LMS, we have Shiloh in there. We have, go do these call the role plays, right? And like go make a couple calls or a list of calls and then come back. Let's grade it. Then go do it again to try to improve, right? Like this does become an important piece in not just elevating the agents, that are already there, but the agents coming in, making sure, I think it sets a good standard too, right? It's kind of almost eye-opening. And for honestly, any team leads that are on this call, I would probably tell you this is a nice recruiting tool too, because at the end of the day, agents want to know how you're going to provide value to them. And when you can, have something like this at your fingertips that really level their game up, it is a nice tool on that end.
There's also like there's a bunch of distinct models to use, and there's a recruiting model. So if you have somebody in your organization making recruiting calls, we can coach to the specificity of recruiting calls or a non-licensed ISA or appointment setter or whatever that thing is, right? So what's funny, Keegan, we didn't do a product announcement about this, but we added, when you start a role play here, that the player bar shows up down here at the bottom now, because what people were asking for is for the new agents for onboarding. It was fine. Like, okay, we create an onboarding training library. We tell the new agents, go into the training library and role play these calls. This is your kind of test. But what they wanted was the agents were like, well, we don't know what a 5-star call sounds like. We don't know what it feels like. We don't know how to demonstrate that. So we were like, before we weren't putting the player bar in here because we were like, well, I don't want to give somebody too much data before they like role play. I don't want some of the like surprise stuff behind it. It was honestly like a bad thought. What we should have done from the start is expose the player bar, because now what people are doing is that they're building a 5-star role play library. So when agents go in, they can go listen to it and then they can try it on. Like, the 5-star call felt a little easier, right? But the funny thing is if you start screwing up on that 5-star call, Shiloh will start turning on you, is the reality, right?
Yeah.
You won't just get a 5-star because the original call was a 5-star. So, okay.
A couple quick questions. Sorry.
Go ahead, Nelson. I had a question.
Two quick. I had three. One of them was to Keegan if he was able to leverage this in the recruiting that he does. So I think he already answered that. My other two questions are voicemails. Are there any? And this maybe is a question for both Keegan and Justin. Are there any big takeaways? Like, should agents be leaving voicemails? Are there specific contexts where they should be leaving voicemails? Or my opinion is that voicemails are probably a waste of time. Maybe just focus on text. Or I'm curious what you guys think.
I mean, I'm thinking from a consumer standpoint. I read the transcripts, right? I typically I'm not going to call somebody back without reading a transcript, and it's always good to know, like, is this person calling me with some actual pertinent information, and I do need to call them back, or is this just some spam call? So yeah, I actually like voicemails, and I probably, like most people, at least maybe not as a producing agent anymore, but we get a lot of calls from numbers we don't see, or that we don't have saved, right? Unknown numbers. So if they do leave the voicemail and I can read the transcript, it's a better chance in calling them back.
Yep, I agree with that. And we see the like data to support it, actually, because leaving a voicemail on someone's phone at this point is basically another kind of text message. Because no one listens. I don't listen to the voicemails. I just read the little transcript that's right there on my iPhone, right? Like, it catches me up real fast. So it's a like another method to getting a text message through onto somebody's phone that they will definitely check, because at some point that voicemail box will fill up and they will have to go in there and look at them and delete voice messages, is the reality, right? At some point in the future, they will have to acknowledge and at least read through that, like, Keegan called them and left a voice message, right? So you can like guarantee that they'll see it and know who you are. The other thing, like Levi had this gal named Rebecca Sutherland. I forget. Sorry, Rebecca, if you're listening to this. She's kick-ass. She was making like 250 to 300 calls a month. Just absolute animal. Like, those are like ISA numbers, by the way. Like, producing agents don't do that very often. But she was leaving a lot of voicemails and not having a high return rate. And we looked at Shiloh's insights and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, these voicemails that she's leaving are the just checking in voicemails. So we tweaked what she should say on those voicemails. And guess what? She just had her best quarter ever. People are calling her back again. Right. So.
Love that. Yeah. And maybe my next question was, we talked a lot about discovery questions, and I think people could probably guess the most important discovery questions, but do you guys have any insights in terms of like maybe some of the most underrated discovery questions that the agent should be asking?
Yeah. Let's say call it a buyer, right? Cash or financing. Cash or financing. I think that's something that most people miss. They're so focused on what you're looking for, size of home, location, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, more characteristics about the home. Cash or financing. Like, the answer to that question can lead you down a path that allows you to ask a lot more questions, aka stay on the phone longer, aka ask more than 9 questions, and your conversion rate goes up. Right? I think that is a big one that is missed.
Yeah, I agree. The initial upfront questions that we've seen, and also from my experience, for people, I didn't state this in the past, but I've founded 2 real estate teams in my past, one that's scaled to 3 states and sold, north of 1,000 homes every year. So like, I understand what it's like to do this. And some of the reality is qualifying, right? We don't want to spend a lot of time with people that are not ready to buy right now. There's a time delta there. And the true reality, I was taught this by the Craig Proctor coaching program, actually, is that like asking those qualifying questions up front is actually getting that person to the thing that is most valuable to them the fastest, opposed to having some 5-minute conversation about home search criterias and things like that, where it's like, oh man, they can't even qualify for a loan yet. Like, or they can't, this is way too early in the process to be having this conversation. And you just gave them something that's like super not helpful. Right. So asking like, hey, awesome, Keegan. Like, it looks like we got connected through Zillow. You looking to make a move in the next 3 to 6 months? And they're like, oh yeah, I am. Next, if they say yes to that, then we move on to, okay, let's get them qualified, set a listing appointment, let's move on. If they say, oh no, we're looking to move to Tampa, but we're about 12 months out, we're going to get restationed, the Army's going to restation us, or like whatever that thing looks like. Okay, yeah, probably not a good time to go speak to a lender and start talking about that. Well, you don't know that if you don't ask good qualifying questions, So
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, I love that.
So it saves your time and it gets them what they want faster. So yeah, it's a dual-edged sword on that side. Yeah, at least in the world it was that universal callback script. So it was like, you're looking to make a move in the next 3 to 6 months. Awesome. 3 to 6 months. You got a real estate agent that's to help you when the time's right. No, I don't have one. Okay. Game on to the races. Like I got the two most important ones, time and motivation straight out of the gate, basically. So really on this one, all I'm just showing is like the math that everybody knows. So like of all of these conversations that happened, 28 like 1,000 coachable calls, that's 1,400 hours just to listen to each call once. This is only in 3.5 months. That is more time than you can hire humans to do, right? It's impossible. With all of the Shiloh data and that original case study, it would take a team of 10 people just about 7 years to listen through all of that talk time, right? So it's impossible, So what Shiloh is giving is coverage through all of that. But, here's the moral of the story. It's only been 3.5 months. I stated before that like Keegan's team actually started above what normal starting benchmarks are, which is awesome. If you're in Tampa and you're looking for a team, this is not a sales pitch. Keegan's team is obviously good at teaching people how to convert, right? Because they started with a baseline that's higher than what we have at Shiloh. And there are about 7,000 agents using Shiloh. So it's not like a small amount of people. Over the past, 3.5 months, there's already been an improvement, 24% improvement on high quality 4 to 5 star conversations. And we know from that earlier data that those calls convert at a 44% conversion rate, which is freaking awesome. 25% is a huge lift at that point. Your appointment set rate, kind of these underlying factors that are underneath this call rating. Okay, great. Appointment set rate has increased by 26%. And the ask rate has increased by 41%, which is awesome. Like Keegan's team is actively doing that, which he kind of stated earlier that they're starting to focus on this stuff, right? And if we focus this down the line to like true attribution data, which is, if people are listening to this, they're like, oh, okay, what does this actually mean, closings wise? It becomes hard for Keegan's organization in 3.5 months to figure out what attribution is all the way to closed, right? So there are some assumptions in this data that is based on his conversion rates that are specific to Keegan's organization, right? So what we're looking at is, his team would have closed deals with or without Shiloh is the reality. They would have done that. So Shiloh can't claim all of the closings and all of the things that have happened thus far. We can only claim a small percentage of the uplift in activity and call performance and appointment setting rate and things like that, right? So when we model that based off of all of the things that have moved, what I did for this data is I took the first 2 months of the calls that Keegan's team has made, only in top of funnels, like first touch stages, basically. I track those individual people to what their CRM stage is as of yesterday, right? As of yesterday, we have basically 120 grand of commission sitting as either closed or under contract inside of those one states, or sitting in the right near adjacent pipeline stage, which is, active listing agreement signed, showing homes, active buyer, those things, right? We do have one really great case study for DJ and Lindsay. It's the only one that we've done of its form where we were able to track it over an entire calendar year. And what we did is we took their first 4 months of top of funnel data, track that through an entire calendar year to see where those people ended up at the end of the calendar year. That one truly is like attributed to closings, like only closings, none of this like, we don't know if the listing, maybe the listing's live, but we don't know if it's going to sell thing. There's some data points in there. Even that one, low side attribution of like 25% of Shiloh's like help in that is a 650% ROI on all of that data. And that one, that case study is ironclad, right? So we know
Hey, Justin,
that.
if you
follow
could
this down the road,
yeah.
and it increases that. Yeah.
Send me that case study after this webinar, and I'll include that in the replay email for anyone that wants to check it out.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Actually, it's gonna, whatever. I'm gonna do that. So
Everybody.
that's the data I have. Yeah, I just ask for the appointment, right? I just get all of this stuff. I'm like, ask. So if you guys want to book a demo to see Shiloh, like this is the chance. Scan that QR code and it'll allow you to book a demo and kind of see if it's a good fit for you. Just know that as an organization, we really do abide by the we want to do what we say we're going to do and then leave people better than we found them. So we want to make sure that Shiloh is also like the correct fit for you, because we don't want people spending money on Shiloh when it won't be helpful for them, or they're not at the right stage to use it, or whatever that looks like. So we're going to help you walk through that. That's really what the demo is for. It's like a discovery thing to make sure that like Shiloh is a really great fit for you. So you can scan that QR code, and Nelson, maybe you can send some stuff out or whatever. And
I'll mention too, we got a bunch of teams on Agent Fire using Shiloh. Everyone loves it. Everyone raves about it. So you've done a really good job, Justin.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a ton.
Thanks, guys. Have a great time,
cool.
Justin.
Yeah, appreciate it being on, guys.
Yeah. Keegan, Justin, Tristan, thank you guys.
Appreciate
Appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank
You're
you.
awesome. Later.